The year is 1999. I was only 5 at the time, but I remember seeing it for the first time. A man who was parkouring and keeping up with the car. He would leap great distances and land every single one. They would also grab swings off the poles and run along the telephone wires. I was so invested in this imaginary being that I would name them Parkour Guy. I'm almost certain anyone reading this has done the same in some capacity, but I never really thought too deeply about this or why it was a phenomenon we all share. Like the cool S that everyone used to draw, no one knows the origins of that or Parkour Guy. Ever since I had gotten older, my ability to imagine that Parkour Guy has gotten worse and worse, and eventually stopped existing altogether. That is, until last week. Monday, last week. So ever since I was a child, I would get crazy migraines and body pains. I would often complain to my parents saying how much it hurts, but they always chalked it up to being growing pain or my ADHD. Strangely enough, the pain and migraines started to become less and less frequent as I grew older. This was the same time I started to see less and less of the Parkour Man. Fast forward, I'm now 29 and started to get random pains and migraines again, and I couldn't explain it. So I did the adult thing and went to a doctor about my issues, and they did a test on my blood pressure and urinalysis. The doctor called me after a day or so. He let me know I was just dehydrated and to drink plenty of water. I drink almost a gallon of water a day. I don't know how I am dehydrated. Eventually, my migraines became so frequent that I couldn't even drive around because I couldn't focus on the road with the pain I was in. Monday was when I started to see it again. The Parkour Man jumps from street light to building and down, graciously tumbling and climbing. However, he was different. The Parkour Guy I knew wore a ninja mask and wore black clothing, but this one, it was just a silhouette, and he was constantly staring at me. I looked to my partner as we were going to my next appointment to resolve this problem and asked, "Have you ever looked out the window of a moving car and seen or imagined a parkour guy running alongside the car?" "Well, yes, I do vaguely, but my life was different then. I was a wily child who couldn't sit still. I haven't imagined it in a while, but I'm sure I would if I had to ride a passenger all the time." We shared a laugh. "Yeah, I'm seeing him, or it, now, and just bringing back old memories." I didn't say that he looked different or that it was staring at me now, standing still at the stoplight. The doctor that day was confused about how I was still dehydrated and prescribed me pills that would help me with water retention. My health was declining, and I was starting to feel weaker and weaker as the days went by. Each day felt like I was crawling to get by, and my energy went way down. 3 nights ago, I was awoken by a strange sound coming from the kitchen. My head was pounding and my mouth was dry and sticky. That sound was probably this migraine playing tricks on me so I could get up and get some water. I told myself to calm my nerves. I slowly stumbled to the fridge where we kept a gallon of filtered water for when I needed something to drink. I also grabbed 2 Tylenol quick releases to help with this pain. I put the pills in my mouth and drank so much water I had to gasp for air after. After I closed the fridge, I heard another strange sound, but this one was outside on my back porch. My porch is about 30 feet off the ground because the house is built on a steep hill. I walked with one eye open to the back to see what it was. I looked around with the blurry vision I had and saw it, hanging from my porch, staring at me, although I could only see the top half of its fingers and its eyes. Its face was always blank or blurry, but this time, I could see its deep black eyes and pale skin. There was a sheen of water on top of its head. I slowly backed away, thinking this may be a hallucination of my mind due to the fever and pain. I just went back to bed and tried my best to ignore it. The next day, when I got up and went to the kitchen for more water, I looked at the porch. The door was wide open. There was no sign of forced entry either. Only a single set of footprints entered the home and vanished once it passed the rear door. I had a strange feeling I was being watched, no matter if I was inside or outside my home. I could feel it watching me with those black eyes. Throughout the day, I kept experiencing this feeling of unease and dread. The day seemed to drag on, and now and then I would catch a glimpse of the man in a mirror or glass. I had another appointment the morning and needed to leave. My headache has gotten worse, but the pain and fatigue have been getting better. While inside the car, I laid my head against the cool glass, which gave me a moment of reprieve from the heat and migraine I had been dealing with. I usually close my eyes, but the feeling of being watched kept me from dropping my guard and sleeping. Looking through the window, I could see it standing in front of the car door. This time, I got to see its whole face. Pale white skin with deep black eyes, but no mouth or nose. He only had holes on the side of his head, which I assumed were his ear holes. Seeing it standing in front of my door shocked me to my core, and I screamed in terror. My partner tried to comfort me by showing there is nothing there. When my partner stepped out of the car and stood right where it did, he disappeared behind them. "See, hun? You're just going through delirium due to dehydration. I love you. It's gonna be okay." However, I knew better. It was real. I didn't know what it wanted, but I could feel it was waiting for me to be alone. As we pulled away, I could see its blank, expressionless stare as it stood in our driveway watching me right away. As we traveled the old streets in the downtown section of my city, I would catch glimpses of it staring at me and not moving. It would be on top of a building. Cold, expressionless eyes would meet me and cause me dread and anxiety as if it were coming and there was nothing I could do. I tried my best to look away, but every time I would, it would show up and be in the center of my vision. I tried closing my eyes and I could still see it in my head, staring. We arrived at the doctor's office, an off-tan building with a blue tin roof. A sign on the building in a warm orange hue, "Mercy Medical," was shining in the light. I felt my fear response speak in my chest, telling me to not enter this place as if I was going to die by walking in. The gates of Tartarus were standing in front of me, warning me of it. My partner tugged on my shirt and held my hand and guided me. Their face shone through my fuzzy vision. With the help, I was able to get to my doctor and start talking. Before we started, I had to sign a few forms, which I couldn't remember what it was for. An experimental drug, but it was supposed to help. This is a new type of drug meant to target the part of the brain that controls blood pressure and nerves. It seems that your blood pressure is crazy high, and this should bring it down. We can only guess it's a hypersensitive crisis that's been drawn out for a week, but since the condition is pretty scary, we've been trying to get you in whenever we can to monitor you. I can give you a shot to have this medication working now, and it'll last all day until around 6 a.m. He pulled out a syringe and plunged it gently into my arm. I sighed in relief as the medicine coursed through my veins. I could feel the pressure of my head reducing and the fuzzy blur starting to sharpen and fade away. I shook his hand and left with my partner. It was such a relief. I cried in the car ride home, being able to look out into the bright midday sky and feel the warmth of the sun on my skin without any of it being overbearing on my body. Best of all, it was no longer in my sight, and the feeling of dread and overwhelming anxiety was fading into obscurity. Before we went home, we stopped by our local CVS and got the prescription we needed. I got home and the colors were brighter than normal and everything felt better, cleaner, and fresh. The lights in my room were clearer, and the smell of my home felt more crisp. Everything was fine with no sign of it. I just forgot about it as well. I let my guard down. Last night, my dreams were vivid tapestries of vibrant colors and motion that only Van Gogh could illustrate. It was surreal and amazing. However, this bliss came to an abrupt stop when I was awoken by my partner's crying. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked in a worried tone. The only thing illuminating the room was a soft green light shining from the alarm clock saying it was 3 a.m. "It wants you, but you keep running. Why do you keep running?" My partner said, crying. What do you mean?" I said as I reached towards them. As their hands pulled down, I stared in abstract horror. Their eyes were missing and ink ran down their face. "It needs you." My partner, what I thought was my partner, started to contort vocally and physically. I heard bones snap like fresh celery, and their voice become static as they brought their arm over their head to grab the bottom of their jaw and pull it sharply, ripping it off. The bed was flooded by their warm, vicious blood. In my horror, they kept crawling towards me, crying, asking me to stop taking the medicine. I looked towards the nightstand and saw it standing in the background, smiling at me from a mouth made from tattered flesh and gnarling teeth and the same black eyes. Before I could take the medication, it grabbed my wrist and leaned in close to me. "You have seen so much. You'll run out eventually, and when you do, I will welcome you into the void." The searing pain left a black mark on my arm as I reeled away in pain, and it just stood there staring at me. I grabbed the pills and took one quickly, hoping the nightmare would end. It was then I woke up from that dream. My partner was there sleeping soundly, and I reached over to see their face. It was normal. I got up to go to the bathroom and wash my face for a minute. The cold water woke me up more. The sudden realization made me almost vomit, knowing what I saw and how real it felt. I looked down at my arm. Its handprint was black on my arm like a fresh tattoo. I only have 30 days of pills, with my doctor not re-upping on them since they are experimental. Even typing here now, I can see him on my black screen staring at my every move. What do you do when you're in an impossible situation? Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this narration. I just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my patrons who are subscribed over at my Patreon. We have a great big thank you from me to you, Alonzo, Kozak, Icy Narrates, Jesse Hartley, Andreas Anderson London, and Geek Sanctuary. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. If you would like to support too, just check out the links in my description. And thank you again for listening. I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.